Hello, AP Worlders, our last lecture of the year. But good news for you guys is you're still going to have homework because you're going to have to do review activities. Alright, globalization. Technology has contributed to the acceleration of economic globalization. Container shipping, oil tankers, and air express has lowered transportation costs. Fiber optics and the internet has made communication easier. Major capitalist countries such as the US and UK eased their political controls on economic activity as their leaders and business people viewed the whole world as a market. They lowered tariffs and tax and spending cuts. The World Bank created free market and pro-business conditions for poor countries to contribute. Now, department stores and supermarkets around the world stock their shelves with goods from all over the world. Money globalized in three ways. 1. Foreign direct investments. Example, a firm in U.S. opens a factory in China or Mexico. They do this to take advantage of cheap labor, tax breaks, and looser environmental regulations. 2. You can have short-term movement of capital. Short-term, you can have movement of capital, or investors purchase foreign currencies or stocks to make a profit and then sell them. Or 3, the personal funds of individuals. International credit cards have exploded, allowing easier transfer of money across borders. The biggest cause for economic globalization to grow has been the creation of transnational corporations, like you see here, Starbucks, McDonald's, right, in multiple nations. Alright, these transnational corporations, which produce goods or deliver services simultaneously in many countries. Accompanying the movement of goods and capital in the globalizing world were new patterns of human migration. Alright, people migrated for different reasons, whether it's driven by war, revolution, poverty, and the end of empire. The most significant migration is the vast movement of people from developing countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America to industrialized or developed countries. They have been known as labor migrants. Many moved illegally with few skills to escape poverty and are drawn by the belief in a better future. The impact of this globalization has been greatly debated. One thing for sure is that it has generated the largest economic growth in world history. Life expectancies went up almost everywhere. Infant mortality has gone down and literacy has gone up. The problem is the instability of the economy and the unequal distribution of the wealth. The instability hasn't created anything as bad as the Great Depression, but the recession of 2008 was a sign. 2008's recession was triggered by millions of homes going into foreclosure, growing unemployment, and tightening of credit. The inequalities are evident with the disparities in income, medical care, available drinking water, educational and employment opportunities, and access to the internet. There has been a growing criticism of globalization. They are known as the anti-globalization movement. For many, opposition to globalization is a mounting resistance to American power and influence in the world. The idea of liberation spread during this era, but it meant different things to different people. Communism was to get liberation from capitalist oppression. Nationalism was liberation from imperialism. Advocates of democracy felt liberation was authoritarian governments, or freedom from authoritarian governments. Civil rights movement people felt liberation was from racism and discrimination. Alright, and then last there were the feminists. Feminism began in the West with the main focus on suffrage, or the right to vote. But in the 60s, feminism moved on to much more than just the right to vote. It was to women achieving equality. Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, disclosed the identity crisis of educated women who felt unfulfilled by just marriage and motherhood. Betty Friedan was saying that it was a mystique or a myth that that's all that they should strive for, and that women shouldn't strive for more than just to be a great mother. Cultural globalization also created a challenge that modernity presented to the world's religion. Religion was headed for extinction, some thought. in the face of this modern science and communism and globalization. However, contrary to early expectations, religion has played a powerful role in this most recent century. There's a group called the fundamentalists in every major religion. The fundamentalists wanted to look to the past for ideals and models. They rejected modernity. They were selective, not wholesale. Fundamentalists sought an alternative to modernity. They wanted to infuse religious values within modern use of technology. All right, so here you could kind of see the difference between the two. All right, and they had extensive educational and propaganda efforts to try to mobilize followers. Sometimes it would erupt into violence. The Islamic fundamentalists were the most prominent. They wanted to renew and reform the practice of Islam and create a new religious political order centered on a particular understanding of their faith. Islamic renewal movements gained strength from the enormous disappointment that had accompanied them leaving conquest or leaving colonial rule. All right. Also, the disappearance of the Ottoman Empire. For long, the Ottoman Empire was seen as like the center of the Islamic world. All right. So these Islamic fundamentalists were also upset with foreign intrusion that they felt still persisted in places like Israel. All right. They also didn't like the secular schools, alcohol use, and Western culture. They insisted that the Quran and Sharia law provided a guide for all of life. One of the things that was done was, or that was believed, was to have a jihad, all right, which was an effort to return to Islamic principles. Jihad refers to the struggle or striving to please God. Jihad included defense of an authentic Islamic world against Western aggression and vigorous efforts to achieve Islamization of social and political life within Muslim countries. All right, so some people misuse it or misunderstand jihad as saying that it's a religious war, but that's not what it was. Some in the religious renewal group sought to forcibly overthrow what they saw as governments that were not living in the Islamic world way. The most successful of these was in Iran in 1979 that we discussed in our last lecture. Sometimes Islamic revolutionaries also took aim at hostile foreign powers. Hamas in Palestine and Hezbollah in Lebanon are two examples. They would do suicide bombings, rocket attacks, and popular uprisings. All right, another group would be Al-Qaeda, which was headed by bin Laden. And at first, bin Laden worked along with the Americans because bin Laden fought in Afghanistan to try to stop Russia from taking them over. However, after that, bin Laden became more radical and came back to Afghanistan and headed up the Al-Qaeda government and eventually planned the September 11th attack in the United States. All right, and then last, we have the environmental movement. Since at least the Industrial Revolution, the Anthropocene, or the Age of Man, some historians call it. All right, and they talk about it because it's the impact that human activity has had on the planet. Species extinctions, increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the depletion of groundwater reserves, the enlargement of deserts, dead zones in the oceans, transformation of the landscapes as wetlands, and wetlands shrinking, and urban centers growing. There are three factors that have magnified the human impact. One is the explosion of the human numbers. With more humans, more people, it's been a bigger strain on one reason for the human expansion is because of medical and sanitation advances. Also because of the Green Revolution, which is using technologies to grow more food. Technologies include genetically modified seeds and fertilizers that has increased world food supplies. This vast enlargement of human population, though, has meant more consumption and more demand on the Earth's resources. It's also led to massive urbanization and global migration. A second cause is the environmental stress due to fossil fuels and coal use. Oh, yeah. So that drove coal and oil drove the industrialization. So we needed it, but it's put a lot of stress on the environment. And a third one is the modern science and technology increase in the production of goods and services. Today, modern environmentalists are concerned with deforestation, drought, and desertification. They want to protect remaining wilderness areas and the wildlife there. All right. They also are looking into or try to stop the exposing of chemical contaminants in the environment, such as pesticides. National governments have acted to curtail pollution and to foster the use of renewable energy sources. All right, so that's it for our lectures for the year. See you guys in class.